Great. So thank you so much, Anjali and Kabir, for joining us for this guest talk tonight. It's always a delight for me to be able to host and moderate our Terra Talks with farmers from all over the world. Anjali and Kabir are joining us from their farm, Yaraway Farm in Karnataka, and they are both second generation organic farmers who believe in sustainability through growing food, adapting to the current environment and technologies, and protecting the environment. As trained and certified biodynamic farmers, they believe in a regenerative form of agriculture where the farm is a living entity that interacts with the environment and its beings to build healthy living soil and to produce food that nourishes mankind. So I was delighted to connect with Anjali and Kabir a few months ago through a previous Terra fellow, Aneri Parikh, who's been following their progress and using their inspiration to launch her own farming initiative outside of Ahmedabad. And so thank you so much for joining us. And I'll turn it over to you to further introduce yourselves and take it away.
Hey everyone, good morning. I'm Anjali.
I'm Kabir.
And hope you can hear as well. And I think Lainey gave us quite an extensive introduction, but just to briefly tell you, both of us run Yaraway. No? Can you hear us?
You froze for 1 second for me at least, but you're back now.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now, Anjali. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So both of us are practice regenerative farming on our farm here in South Karnataka. We have around 50 acres that we're managing actively. And I took on to farming much later from 2010 onwards, but Kabir has been farming since he was actually born and brought up on an organic farm. Let you take over from here.
Yeah. I'm a second generation organic farmer. My parents moved here and started farming organically in 1986. So we've been here for 30 odd years. So I grew up on the farm, was homeschooled, and yeah, this is my life. This is what I do.
Yeah, so I grew up in the city and I'm here now. We live in the rural belt, very close to the Bandipur and Nagarhole forest range. So definitely a very different environment from where I came from, but for Kabir, this is home. So he's grown up, with the wild around him. So we'll get into the images and everything else once we start our presentation and what our farming practices are and what our experience has been. So let's jump right into that, given the interest of time. Okay. Give me a second, guys.
Close this a second. Close this. Close it. Yeah, and open it. Now open it again. There you go.
I need to go back to.
Sure.
Yeah. I need to go back to.
So, that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you see the screen clearly? Okay.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Sounds good to me too. No, don't worry about that. Yeah.
Okay. So like we said, we're a family farm and homestead. We follow biodynamic and sustainable farming practices. Given our temperature and altitude, we have a long growing season here that allows us to grow multiple crops across the season. So we have 3 long growing seasons and where we grow a wide variety of crops from millets to grains to pulses to vegetables. So we don't have any extreme temperatures like in the temperate zones where we have a freeze or we have too hot a temperature that we can't grow anything. So we're lucky that way. And close proximity to the forest ecosystem and wildlife, which has its own pluses and minuses. We'll go over that. And We manage close to 16 hectares. Eight of them, we have our annual crops, which we grow in rotation between all the seasons. And then 6 hectares of that, we have perennial orchards and wooded trees and a lot of long-term plants that we're focusing on as a part of the regenerative agriculture practices. And 2 acres we've left uncultivated. We'll get into our buffer zones and what we've done to our land so you understand why we have done that. Okay. Um, Next comes farming practices, right? So we're going to talk about the overall practices that we follow on the farm as a part of the regenerative farming. First thing is soil care. Everything starts and ends with soil. So we make our own farm manure-based compost and inputs, and we also do a lot of green manuring on our farm and cover cropping, in other words. So everything starts with the soil. We say that because, taking care of the soil is what actually maintains the plant's health, to keep them pest-free and disease-free. So a lot of our focus of the farming is on soil-based. And we make all our compost ourselves on the farm, and we don't use any external inputs. Then other practices we do are mixed cropping and rotations by season. So we do grow crops by season. And we do also a lot of intercropping and mixed cropping. So companion planting where crops, benefit each other. So we grow the pulses with the millets and, so limit also the kind of heavy water consuming plants as well and mix them with other crops. Then we also did a lot of landscaping work on our farm, which you'll see in the coming images. So this we do to conserve water and preserve the topsoil, so that there is enough nutrition for the plants that are growing on these soils. We also do a lot of seed saving, and we maintain the biodiversity of the place. We'll get into more details there because our landscape is so close to the forest. We're also trying to preserve a lot of those species within our land. And finally, economic resiliency. We grow close to 80% of our own food. So that's part of our sustainability, where we don't want to really go out too much and get a lot of food from outside, which beats the purpose of us trying to do farming here, right? Then comes biodynamic agriculture. A lot of people ask us why biodynamic. Both of us actually met through biodynamic agriculture through teachers. And it actually, we gravitated towards it also because it's very soil-based and soil health-based. So this form of agriculture supports the right balance of people and, and beings on the farm and animals. And the cattle are the digestive system of the farm. They're very integral to the part of the farming system, right? We use specially made compost consisting of time-tested doses of plants, minerals, and animals, to improve soil life and structure. So there are all these herbs that we grow on the farm that also go back into our compost that fix the life forces in a lot of ways. We don't use any soil amendments from outside or animal feed. We grow all the fodder ourselves. So the whole system believes in the farm being a whole system within itself and should be supporting itself. There's no point if we have to buy things from outside. We should be able to grow everything within the farm for the animals and for the people living in it. Then a big thing about biodynamic agriculture is that we follow the patterns of the moon and the several planets and the sun phases. And we sow our crops and also harvest them and plan major activities on the farm based on, the lunar cycles. So there's a calendar that releases every year that we follow. We believe that the resulting produce is nutritionally superior because of the system of farming. The taste and the profile of these vegetables and fruits that grow on our farm are more dense. And so that's kind of what we have been following over a period of time. Okay. Now let's take a quick glimpse of our farm and ecosystem so that gives you an idea of where we are from. Okay, here's the forest around us. We're surrounded all three sides by forest, and that's our land here on the far right. Okay. All right. Then here's a bird's eye view of our farm. Okay, so on the top here, as you can see, these are our swales. So this is the highest part of the farm, which is the hills. And this is where we grow our pasture and orchards and wooded trees. If you see the top area here is where, which we've left uncultivated, these edges here. These are more of our buffer zones. Kabir will get more into it as to why we did that, to protect from wildlife and make sure there's enough room before they get into our forest. Then the flat lands here are more the croplands. So we kind of respected the landscape of this, this land that we're working with, that we use the hills to create the orchards and we could use the flatlands to create annual crops. We didn't disturb the way the land has been structured. So we're just respecting it and kind of working with it because the soil is different on different layers here. And here you'll also see a little pond here that we've made and excavated. So a lot of the water that runs off from the hill actually comes down to this pond, which we collect through the year. And so this is all the excess water that hasn't been caught on the land that comes down here. Okay, we'll get into water conservation and the topics later. This is our house and where we do all our work, and our sheds and everything is a part of the structure here. And yeah, okay. Now, here's the reservoir. So we live right on the reservoir. You've seen the water body before. It's called Nugu Reservoir. It's a tributary of the Kaveri River. So all the, the rivers from, the forest actually flow in, and this is the reservoir that eventually feeds into Kaveri and flows downwards. You can see our land here that's hugging it. We don't often get flooded, but sometimes we do get a lot of water coming in at the edges, and we make sure that it's channeled into the right spaces if that happens. Here are sunflower fields from last year. Okay. And green manure crops. This is sun hemp growing here in the background. And this is one of our green manure crops that we grow to as a cover crop to plow into the soil, as well as, use it to regenerate the soil.
Humus generation. Yeah.
To increase the humus generation, because when you have large packs of land like this, there's only so much compost you can use. So we use green manure to return the topsoil back and to keep working on that layer.
Anjali, can you clarify just like the term green manure? Like why is it called green manure? I mean, I know the soil benefits are there, but can you clarify that term a little bit?
Okay, green manure as such is when you grow leguminous crops and grass crops with it. So when you're looking at green manure, you're looking at a crop that can give back nutrients to the soil and also build humus. So so there are various kinds of green manures. There's a green manure which you can use to build the carbon content in the soil, which stays there, and there is green manure which breaks down and becomes high nitrogen feed for plants. So it's how you plow in a cover crop, like that. Yeah, that's what a green manure is.
Got it. Thank you. That's really helpful.
All right, and this is our dryland rice growing here. We grow close to an acre of dryland rice, and why we call dryland is, as you see a lot of rice that grows across the world, you see it waterlogged, right? Farmers do this to protect the crop from
weeds. Mainly weeds.
And the main goal is to get as much rice as possible from one crop, right? So here is a variety that is actually very traditional. We picked it up from tribal farmers around here, and we're actually bringing it back. People around us told us they haven't seen this in the last 25 years, but we have started preserving it again, and we're hoping that more people do it now. It's a red rice variety and very nutritionally dense. It doesn't produce as much as other varieties, and it's also a long crop that produces over a period of 5 to 6 months, which people don't do normally these days. They like a quick 3 to 4 month crop that they can quickly harvest. So we kind of put this in end of May, and then we harvest close to November, and keep an eye on it from the elephants and everything else. But it is a long crop, that we grow every year. So rice is something we don't buy from outside, right? Here comes our barnyard millets. So we grow different kinds of millets as well. And these are other millets we grow, which is jowar or sorghum, and that's ragi, which is also called finger millet, right? And here's our rainwater harvesting pond that you saw in that other image, where this is fully full in the time of October. And we also had fish in there last year. So, and these are our neighbors who come over often. So you get a good glimpse of them. And these are our bulls who are at work. So we use them for work on the farm, to
intercultivation
to
mainly.
do intercultivation,
mainly.
weeding work and other work. So we keep them busy in at least one season a year. Yeah. This is our harvest season. This is a ragi that was harvested, and this is the process they go through before we start extracting the grain out of the carbon there. So yes, the straw also goes back to the animals and sometimes back into the field. So like I said, it's all rotates into the cycle. Then here are orchard swales. You've seen a different image of this, but this has been a project we've taken up last year. We grow close to 8 acres of mango and lychees here. The very young plants at this point. So they're actually growing in these swales, and there's a lot of area there that's in the middle that we've left space, and we didn't want it. It was just growing wild shrubs and not really useful plants for the animals to graze on as well. So this year we actually went in and put in a lot of pasture crops. So we did a mix of millets and grains and greens, and so that animals can go graze there. We have it as trap crops for rabbits and other animals to eat, so they don't come into our vegetable gardens. So we'll get into more of that later, but we wanted you to see the before and after image of the before, and you know how we just plowed it up once a year, and we're hoping to continue this at least for 8 to 9 months in the year, and then try and maintain it in summer and see how it goes. So it is a test we're doing as of now, and we're hoping it goes well. And here's our pasture land. This was taken last month, where you see our bulls and cows enjoying the greens that are growing here. Okay, this is our seed garden. So I grow close to 100 varieties of seeds a year, and we actually sell the seeds online, different types of herbs and vegetables and flowers. And I'm passionate about seeds and saving seeds. So you can see me there taking pictures and putting them on our seed packets and selling them. The image on the left shows our tomato plants here, and here's our lettuce growing here. We don't use any plastic mulch on our land. Don't believe in that. So yes, that means more investment in labor and weeding, but also a lot of pre-work on the soil, which Kabir is an expert at, to make sure that the soil is more manageable. Okay, and then that's us at work. That's me pruning a lemon tree, which isn't too pleasant. And then Kabir is making jaggery. So let's see the process of that very briefly. So that's the sugarcane liquid that gets boiled and gets candied and eventually becomes powder. So we actually manually rub the powder. We don't put it through a massive grinding machine. But this is one of our biggest crops that we sell in bulk, which is jaggery powder. And we're also known, amongst families that take it from us very often. And so jaggery is one of our biggest products that goes out as bulk in the seeds, besides our seeds. We also grow our own food, which is very important. We talked about 80% of our food coming from our land. So besides the grains and millets and pulses here, we grow our own vegetables and different varieties since we save seeds. Here are our root crops. Here's some ginger. We also grow our own turmeric and colocasia and potatoes. And here are herbs and flowers. Here's a yarrow flower. Yarrow is actually one of the biodynamic herbs which we named our farm after. So obviously that's growing on our farm. Beautiful flowers, and we use them as a herb. And there's calendula and a lot of different herbs we grow on the farm. Okay, so before we go on to climate change, I just want to go over, what we do on the farm and everything else before we go on to the serious topic. So Okay, Kabir, you want to take over?
Now that the half an hour's over, would
Yeah.
you like to go into more of an interactive
So,
this thing?
Lainey, can we quickly go over the climate slides? I know that we're close to a
Yeah,
half an hour, but I think
go.
that's
Yeah,
to address,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead,
that
Kabir.
sounds great. And then we'll take some questions. I have
Yeah.
been
Okay.
saving up some of mine, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So these are our main observations as far as me having lived here and done this all my life. The the changes in in weather patterns especially have been quite severe. And as farmers, we have to evolve and adapt. Every year, every season is different, and that's just the reality of it right now. Some of the problems we have, you can see in front. Um, we have shorter and more intense rainfall periods, which which affect crop growing cycles. So, for example, the rice that we grow, um, it's actually working out well because it's a longer crop, and we have these situations where uh, you know according to the weather department and according to the government, we've had our full monsoon this year, but actually, honestly, the full monsoon that was supposed to be across 3 months was actually bucket loads of rain within 1 week. So the quantum of rain that comes in is too much at certain times, and then there is longer periods of no rain. The other problem that happens is just after the planting season, we have really small plants. Like in April, May, we plant our seed crops and our long-term crops. And when the plants are really small, we have these bucket loads of rain that come in and that wash out the topsoil of the immediately available nutrients. So plants also go through a gap in growth over there when they're very small. So this is another issue that we're having because of too much rain at wrong times. And things like our rice manage to go through because most rices these days are a 3 month crop. 90 days they're out. You get about a foot of straw, and your yield of grain is higher. But our straw grows about 6 feet tall, 5 to 6 feet tall, and it's a 6 month crop. So it actually manages to go through one rain, then through a bit of a drought, then through another really heavy rainy season, and then after that we harvest it. After the September October rains, then when it starts getting dry, then the harvest. So it's a more resilient variety because it's a stronger plant because it takes longer to grow, and also it can stand up to no rain and all that for longer periods of time. So it's just a small example of there are many varieties of ragi and many varieties of other grains and lentils which are doing really well. For example, our barnyard millet, whatever you do, it just seems to push its way through. And then the other problem we have are pest problems because of erratic rain and ups and downs as far as the weather is concerned. You have these sudden influxes of butterflies or various things like how we're seeing across the world, locusts. A lot of these egg-laying patterns and all that are being seen these days are because of untimely rains and heat at the wrong time and cool at the wrong time, which tend to trigger these patterns of huge amounts of some sort of insects and things happening. Um, and of course, we're seeing a change in the food patterns of wildlife around us. Actually, the food patterns and the forest fires have a lot to do with each other because our forests around here are not old forests and they're not rainforests as such. These are scrubland, which are regenerating slowly. And I mean, although it looks very green and nice, most of what is growing there is either plants that have been planted by the forest department in India, who have this policy of planting things which animals don't really eat. So you have a tendency to plant eucalyptus, few of these simarubas and all that. Then they went into that whole time of planting early acacia. All of these are things which spread, drink a lot of water, and are not eaten by animals. And then we have our invasive species, which come back faster than all of the local species, like lantana, like parthenium, and a few other plants, which basically take over and are not eaten by animals, and they dry up very fast in the summers, and we have tons and tons and tons of just dry biomass there, which is very easy to catch fire. And because of these things happening, there is no food as such left in the forests. We're having situations where elephants are coming and scraping up grass on the backwaters with their feet, literally like taking crabgrass, bundling up crabgrass and eating it because there's no food in the forests. And of course, because of that, we have a lot of um, um, elephant hit and wild animal hit, and um, they tend to come in and eat because, of course, when just across the fence you have a patch of rice or a patch of sugarcane, they will find ways to come through. And we figure it's only fair that because we are here and because we are trying to be part of a whole, we figure about 20% of our crop into losses to wild animals, which is, according to us, an acceptable
Yeah.
balance. Wild animals are not just is not just elephants, it's birds, it's rabbits, it's pigs, it's a whole bunch of species. And the biggest thing that we're seeing, not in the forest but outside in the rural areas, is a lack of empathy from the younger generations because of their schooling, because of the way that, because of how fast, um, because, because of how fast society as such is moving along towards the environment. It's very hard for example, the generation that is here today, who've seen so many changes in their lives. Like every year, you see a change, which is which totally changes the way you think about things and life. It's very hard for that generation to actually appreciate a tree, how long it's taken to grow, what it does, because they take that slot of time for granted. There's no holistic idea of how an environment should be. Or there's very little observation as such because information is just thrown in pockets at you, and you just have to absorb that and move on. And this is going to be one of our biggest problems in the coming years, and that is this unawareness in people of what trees and what environments are needed to be. You know how you need to have one layer of greenery and wildlife at one level, and then one more above that. You have to have the birds and the insects going up and down between that to have a live environment around you, and not just denuded acres and acres of land. You don't know why that tree grew there, but you had the money and you could pull it out and sell it off. So you did it because you could, and you thought that that would be another, few cents of land to grow a little more ginger or a little more rice, when actually, irrespective of the microenvironment, when actually next year the rain comes and picks up half the topsoil that we were saving there, we don't see any rivers or any streams flowing clear anymore. They're all red. All of them are red, and that is not worrying enough to people around. Everything is constantly tanked up with topsoil. Anyways, to go on, we can go on. We can go on about what's happening all day. Um, what we are trying to do, how we are evolving, how we are adapting. Of course, by adjusting sowing patterns and the types of crops we grow, we try to grow more resilient crops, which don't have so much load on the land, and there has been a drift towards plants which which absorb nutrients more from their roots and from the water and all that, from the feed cycle, rather than plants which actually take in um, um, sunlight and actually through the process of photosynthesis grow. This is my observation. I know scientists could turn what I'm saying on its head, but the idea is that a plant needs to take 90% of its food from the air and the environment and from the sun rather than from the soil, because that's not a sustainable way to go about it. You can give the Steiner talks when he speaks about biodynamics is that you can give the intelligence of what to absorb from the soil, but the actual body of a plant should be developed from the energies above. And that is what you see in grasslands, in forests, and all that, which are
Well, Kabir, we lost you for a second. I don't know if you can hear me.
which are really thriving.
Oh,
So it's plants
you're
which
back.
grow easily and don't need so much input and work behind. Yeah.
Did you lose us?
Did you lose us for a minute?
We lost you for like 10 seconds, but now you're back.
Okay. Would like me to go back a little bit or go on?
I think I think it seems clear. Just feel free to carry on. I think we might have missed like 10 seconds, but
Okay. All right. Okay.
yeah, no,
So of
not a
course,
big deal.
so we're speaking about water conservation practices. The water conservation that we work on is not just damming and holding water in percolation pits and all that. A lot of the when we speak about water conservation, we're also speaking about building humus, because most of the moisture in soil is held inside that humus clay matrix. And so we are more so yes, we have our swales, we have our ponds, and have that, but the swales are also aimed at building um, more humus in those ditches, because every year we have a certain amount of biomass that goes into them, and the biomass absorbs the water that falls in rain, and it holds it throughout the land rather than holding it in pockets and letting that go into the groundwater and pumping it out. So that's more what we are um, angled towards. And the next one is creating buffers for refuge and creating buffers and refuges for pests and wildlife. Now, like she said about the pasture land, like that we have bunds, we have various areas where you plant things not for a crop, but to try and mimic a small ecosystem there where there are grains for birds to eat, where there is grasses for rabbits to eat, where there are things that the rest of the ecosystem around us, the rest of the life around us can actually live without coming into our planting areas. And again, humus development and carbon sequestration, which is basically a fancy word for building your topsoil, which is what we try to do every day through every thing we do. And again, we're creating microclimates. So like we're saying, we're more perennials, where you don't go on plowing, but you have things which seed themselves and come back. And the wild trees, we have there are plenty of species around here which are not of any economic value right now to the local population, but they make a big difference, because there are certain kinds of animals that will only nest in certain trees, and there are certain kinds of benefits even to land that only certain trees can give. I mean, it's a long discussion, that one. And yeah, so we can't say that we're doing huge changes for our local population and all that, but through doing all of these things, we through research and seeing how things work and what seeds and crops really grow well, we are indirectly supporting neighboring ecosystems, because economically, to the local population, like I said, who have a very narrow time frame in their minds, a lot of seeds and various things are getting lost. Like, we have places where one old guy will turn up with 4 seeds of one variety, and they actually grow well, and we can't figure out for the life of us why people stop growing them, because they grow. So yeah, so these are things that indirectly, because of what we are doing, are helping neighboring populations and ecosystems. Yeah, that's our son Vikram sitting in a field of buckwheat. Um, yeah, so what we as farmers, as stewards of land, would like to see left behind us, apart from, of course, trees and a nice setup and a nice ecosystem, is what we strive to do every day is to build topsoil, so easily over which has been lost so easily over the years. And honestly, if I mean, me personally, if we can leave an inch of topsoil behind, which was not there when you took over a piece of land, by the time your life is over, we've done a good job. And yes, again, trees and various um, uh, bigger trees, like we plant a tree today, we know that we're only going to see maybe 10, 15 years of its life. And we know that our next generation is going to enjoy it. Is actually going to, see it. I mean, there used to be times when, in ancestral houses and all that, where people would go and see that tree was planted by my grandfather, that tree was planted by his grandfather. So there's a thing there that's lost these days, because there's no appreciation for the time and energy that a tree standing there puts into growing and producing food. And yes, last is, we hope to inspire some sort of empathy in people who we interact with and all that, that is needed to steward a thriving, not just microenvironment, but a whole environment also. You need to understand things. You need to um, be perceptive towards things and understand, how things work. I think that's about it. I know
Yeah, and we'll
it's
leave the floor open for questions.
yeah,
I think we've covered most. Let me stop sharing this. Yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anjali and Kabir, for that wonderful presentation. That was really delightful to cover both like what's happening now on the land and how you're experiencing and reacting to the climate changes that are happening. That was wonderful. So if there's been a few questions coming in as you've been speaking, which I'll go back and call out. But if anyone else has other questions, we're a pretty small group here tonight, or this morning. So feel free to come off mute or raise your hand and I'll call on you to share. Um, let's see if there are any from back before. There's one that just came in from Rashmi. Just want to know if you have any educational field trips that you hold or if you are willing to begin one.
Yes, we are planning to do that. We're hoping for this whole COVID scene to settle a little bit so that people can travel a lot more. A lot of people ask us if we have farm stays. We actually don't at this point. We established this land only 5 years ago. and we managed to just finish our house and have a baby just this year. So we get there. We need to work on doing that. We eventually would like to have the farm stay experience, but we are hoping that next year we can open up to having maybe open days that people can come and
Mhm.
visit.
But we would much prefer to go towards longer term internships
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because we don't want to just be another tourist attraction, which is what it winds up to being. Yeah, we would like
Mhm.
to, select people who want to learn about the farm, about actually, wanting to know if it's for them or not, and who'll actually stay through a season
Yeah.
or two and understand how things work.
Yeah. Because me and Kabir have
Yeah.
taken courses, and the amount of people who
3 day courses,
actually
2 day courses,
end
yeah,
up
it's
doing
just,
is only 2%
it's
who
just
actually end up doing anything. Even after I took the course, I had to really push myself and do it immediately, because if you sit on it, it just doesn't happen. Then we realized
Mm.
that to put our time towards teaching so many elements, it makes sense to do it over a period of time where they can see the
Mm.
seasons shift and things growing, and they can focus on specific topics. Is more useful if we have long-term interns, and longer-term
Mhm.
programs who stay and experience the farm. So that's the direction we're going towards. Yeah.
and actually learn how to farm.
Yeah.
You hope that after an internship or an experience here, you can go to any place you would wish to and be able to implement, you know, what you're
Mhm.
what you're
Yeah.
what you've learned.
Absolutely. Well, you'll have to keep us posted because I feel like there's many members of the Terra community who would love to come and intern on your farm or
Yes.
even help you
Yes.
build housing to support interns. So
Yes.
we'll have to keep in touch about that. Rajan, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, firstly, Anjali and Kabir, thank you for doing what you're doing. It's truly inspirational, and what a wonderful way to start a morning in India. To meet both of you who are really having an impact on the country and the world. I had a question, like, so two questions. One, is, how do you, is there a way to take what you all are doing? You're doing so many things, right? um, and replicate it at the 1 acre or 2 acre, farmer level, because, to sort of address, this at population scale in India, right? With, hundreds of millions of farmers. Is there a way to, or do you actually, because, the thing is, you have a lot of land, right? So you can do the things that you're doing, meaning, kind of grow the things that are going to be your money and so on and so forth. Is there a sort of a almost a nano version of this where you could, let's say,
I
take a,
wouldn't say I wouldn't boil it down to such small areas. It would be more on a community level.
at the community level? Okay.
It has to be a community level. It has to be a village level, or maybe a community of, say, 5, 10 farmers together, and you have to figure out a way to map out, lands where you could, okay, set aside this for this, that for that, and have on a small, the on a micro level you could do it, but it would have to be more on a community level as such.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Because
and at a community level, Kabir, are there examples in India or elsewhere, ideally in India, where I know there are a lot of I mean, not many, but maybe there are a bunch of experiments going on in different states where this has been successfully done, where,
yes, there's Timbuktu Collective in Anantapur. They do that.
Yeah,
Where
Timbuktu Collective is actually
sorry, what is it
very
called?
Timbuktu Collective.
Okay.
the the Timbuktu Collective, they went into Anandpur, which is a very, very dry place, and they have managed to turn that place around. That's one of the places we know of.
So when there's smaller farmers with smaller segments of land, you can bring them all together as a collective and have them grow different species so they can all
Different
share it
species
with
that
them.
are easy to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
That is
So
awesome.
yeah. So they have come out with millets, with oil seeds, with all of these things which naturally grow well in that climate. and there's a lot of greenery and all that has been developed and all that. You've done a very good job.
Yeah. But yeah, it is challenging to have community and collectives do this, because you know how it was with a lot of humans working together. There's a lot of egos flying around. So there are a lot of housing communities also around towns that I've heard, like urban Organo or something in Hyderabad, where they actually, all the people who live there, um, there's a piece of land, I think 20 acres or something, and they got farmers to work on it, and they also spend time with their children on the field, and they're actually growing all the crops there, and they all share it in the community. So this whole, like, because 1 acre, 2 acre is not enough to grow enough rice for the house, right? It doesn't make sense. He can't do this much, that much. So it's a matter of just taking at least 10 acres for, 3, 4 families to have a decent amount of a setup, and to have a variance of crops that they can all share. And it's nice when everyone, uses their expertise. Like, I'm good at growing this, I'm good at growing that, because not everyone can do it. Like, I can't do everything Kabir does, and he can't do everything I do. But we kind of share our responsibilities, and it works out that you work in a community, or you work in your family, where you share, a bigger piece of land, and then share the goodness out of it. But 1 acre, 2 acre is a little too small, to kind of
Oh, very
manage and to
helpful.
have
Thank you.
everything. Yeah.
Thank you, Anjali. I think the only other thing is not a question, but maybe Leni, as one thing like I'm intrigued by is, if there are 100 interns who like, how do you create hundreds of Kabirs and Anjalis in India, right? Who can go out and whether
One
you,
of the ideas, see, one of the ideas is we don't, I mean, I personally don't subscribe to the idea of replicating, um, um, because um, the way I learned, the way that most people who the rest of society follows learned was through a journey of their own, and it's not going to be easy to make to replicate. You can replicate uh, book learning, you can replicate, you know uh, you can replicate a cookie cutter job. You can't replicate what we do. There will be a parallel of somebody else who does it as well as we do, or even better. But to replicate something like the way we think or the way we sing, honestly, you can see eye to eye with somebody, but it won't be a replica.
no, agreed, Kabir, completely agree. But all I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if there are folks who would like to, I mean, I completely agree with you, right? This is different from working at Google. To say the least. But all I'm saying is, Leni, I think it's something that, like, for instance, I would love to fund internships. I can sponsor, I don't know, X number of internships of folks who are genuinely serious. Right now, this is sort of,
Mhm.
I mean, this is the hardest work you can do, right? I mean, both of you, this is not like working at Infosys.
Yeah.
So it's just an idea, Leni, as you guys, I don't know, think about interesting things we can do, especially in India.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's fascinating, right? Because you all are such amazing change agents in your community and for India and so on. Anyway, sorry. So thank you for inspiring us.
Yeah. And no, it's
Um,
absolutely something to think about, I think, with regenerative agriculture and, growing food locally in communities as both nutritional food sources and sources of climate solutions, because it happens again and again with all the farms in the US that I've worked on too, where there's really good systems that have worked out in a particular place, but when you talk about demonstrations or like replicating or doing more of like a good thing, it's always bogged down in like the site specific or personality specific considerations, and so it ends up being a lot of discussion about like principles and like good theories and good things to look out for, but ultimately I just keep feeling like we need more people on
yeah,
land or in
yeah,
conversation with
yeah.
the farmers in the community, so that there's interlinkages, but everyone is doing the best they can, or their site considerations are in place. But yeah, it's
I think
a lot to
I think
learn.
no, I think going back to this, there's a point in most people's lives where around the time when they're, I guess I haven't been to school, but finishing school and starting out, when there's that ideological versus having
Practical.
to be practical about life. There's a there's a there's always a place over there. There's always a gap over there, and I believe if young people at that age can be supported through a year of um, being able to go out and learn how to farm, people who want to farm, it'll make a big difference. That they actually do something that is, not just traveling through a country, seeing farms, but actually go onto a farm and live there and figure out whether it's a life for you or not.
Yeah.
If 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 young people around that age, where that ideological and practical balance is being found, if at that point they can be exposed to something like this, it'll make a big difference.
Yes, because we always have people who say, "Can we come and work on the weekend and go?" That's not gonna.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not gonna. It's not good use of our time or their time, because
And that's also people who've already gotten into a comfortable place
yeah,
in the cycle of life. So you're looking at people who just before that, who really can't afford to do it, but they have the ideological wherewithal to do it. They still have the ideological
yeah.
wherewithal to
And
do
there
it
are
at
people
that
who
point.
say we want to retire and do this. I said you won't have the energy to do this once you retire. Trust me.
Yeah.
So it's like fine. It's really like if you want to do it, start it in some way, and learn it your way. Do what you would like to do with the space. This
And even if you don't wind up being farmers,
yeah.
it'll have an impact on the way you face life and situations later in life.
Yeah.
That's what we,
Yeah. Someone asked when you bought the land, what consideration did you make to decide that it was the right
Yeah.
land to purchase? Um, yes, it took us a year to find just this
Yeah.
land in our neighborhood where I think the biggest thing is um, um, energies. I don't know if I'm throwing you all off board, but the energies of the place, and it's not boring and flat. It's interesting. It has, a lot of aspects to it, and the soil has not been too exposed to toxins, and it's been respected. We didn't get everything we want. The trees were all cut off by the time we got this piece of land. So we really had to restart everything with regards to trees. So it's not like
Mm.
exactly green land, but it's something that can be worked on and something that can become our space. And to be honest, it's just instincts that made us select this place. Yeah.
Mm.
Some amount of good
Wow.
soil, some little hills here and there, close to the forest, and we can grow trees and make it beautiful. That was kind of what
Yeah.
attracted
Mm.
us towards this piece of land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. There was also a question about the seed selling, and do you work with any seed banks or collaborate with other farmers to build heirloom seed collections? And
Yes.
I'm also
I'm not.
curious
Yeah.
who you distribute your seeds to.
Yeah. So seed banks. Yeah, there are many big seed banks. So I do work with them in the sense that there is no exchange of money, but I know the people who
Exchange
run these seed banks and we
some
exchange
seeds. Yeah.
varieties with them. And then I do tell them that I'd like to multiply these and sell them if they're resilient varieties because I want more people to grow these varieties. We also
Mm,
work with farmers in tribal belts around here. And I've also just
mm,
started working with farmers in the Eastern Ghats now, in the Araku
mm,
region. They have a lot of amazing, resilient varieties of vegetables and grains that they
mm.
grow. And I want to make sure we
Wow.
can multiply more of them. And I want to make sure more young farmers have access to them. So yes, we do work with tribal belts and farmers, and we are building our own seed bank as well. So we want to make sure. But to answer your question
That's
about
awesome.
how
Wonderful.
we sell it, is um, I'd say out of the 300, 400 varieties I have, I sell close to 100, and we sell it on our website. I mean, given how the pandemic is
Mm,
going and everything else, we're not doing markets or anything else. across India. We ship across India, so through our website,
Oh,
farm
nice.
store, and we keep doing germination tests at least 3 times a year to make sure the seeds are active and they're truly ripe. So that's how we sell our seeds. Yeah, and we
Ah,
geotag them whenever they're available. Talk about the source, where they are from. We don't do any
mm.
breeding ourselves, but we collect seeds from different farmers, and we multiply them and adapt them and sell them. Yeah.
Ah,
Okay,
wonderful.
about this question about whether carbon sequestration is incentivized for farmers, uh, and your comment slightly further up. Um, we've worked in carbon in we've worked with NGOs who are into trading carbon credits and all that, and we know and we see the the kind of issues that come up there about how you plant a tree, then you measure the tree this year, then next year, and this and that, and then that get paid for this way and all that. But the biggest way of carbon sequestration is by composting. That is the biggest. The biggest loss in all of our lands is the fact that chemical agriculture has systematically broken down the soil and the topsoil, and that topsoil has not been regenerated, but rather it's been taken out and burnt through plants and through other biomass. And um, a lot of the carbon, the free carbon floating around in the world is also thanks to that, which is not spoken about so much these days. So yes, if there was
Oh, you froze.
there isn't currently, but
Ah,
if there was a
yeah.
way
Okay.
to,
Rather than trees, because we talked about the kind of
rather than just trees
that I
and
told
things
you.
like that, build soil carbon.
Yeah.
Building soil
Hmm.
carbon is I think is the best way of carbon sequestration, apart from
Hmm.
any trees or any sort of things, because that topsoil is what holds like everything, all the nutrition, all the growing capabilities of plants and all that. Yeah.
Mm. Thanks for weighing in on that. That's really interesting, and I totally agree. The soil is a huge reservoir to recapture lost carbon, and especially in
Yeah.
California where our trees burn down every year, putting it in soil
Yeah.
systems and deep root systems of perennial plants is really important to be doing. Um, and just in the interest of time, I want to thank you, and anyone that needs to drop off, please go ahead. But if you all are just here for another minute or two, Kabir and Anjali, anyone has any last questions, I'm happy to keep the room open. But this has been truly amazing and really appreciated by all who have been here. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you
Lovely.
so much,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And I can follow up. I'll send you all the recording afterwards, Anjali and Kabir. And yeah, we'll be sharing this out to our Terra community as well.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Great. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.